यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारि यमुनतीरावनचारि जय रातमाधव कुञ्ज बिहारी जय रातमाधव कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यमुनतीरावनचारि यमुनतीरावनचारि राधमाधव कुञ्ज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रील प्रभुपदा जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस परमदक्ष सूत्र सदा शिष्य भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य शिल प्रभुपाद की जय जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस परमदक्ष सूत्र सदा शिष्य इस डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर प्रभुपाद की जय जय ओम विश्वपाद लकोर किशोरदास महाराज की जय जय ओम विश्वपाद सच्चानंद शिल भक्ति ठाकुर की जय जय ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव साधु श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट अविनाशी जीव गोपाल भट्ट गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय नमाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव साधु गौर भक्तविंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण मोह गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड के गोवर्धन की जय श्री मायापुर धाम की जय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय कंकमाई की जय अमनमाई की जय भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतन की जय इस्कॉन मन गुरुवंद की जय समाज भक्तवंद की जय गौरव प्रेमानंद हरि बोल All glories to the assembled Lord. It's all glories to the assembled. It's all glories to the assembled Lord. It's all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Kaur and all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtivi. Hare Krishna, welcome you all to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are today discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 16, Text 26 and Text 27. I'll read first Text 26. Tatra tatra girastashta iti vishruta vikramaha shroshyati atma shitagat gataha prutu prutu parakramaha. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this way, when the chivalrous activities of King Prithu come to be known to the people in general, King Prithu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities. To artificially advertise oneself and thus enjoy a so-called reputation is a kind of conceit. Prithu Maharaj was famous amongst the people because of his chivalrous activities. He did not have to advertise himself artificially. One's factual reputation cannot be covered. Text 27. Disho vijitya patirudda chakraha swatejasotpatita lokashalyaha sura surendre upigamya upagiyamanha mahanubhavo bhavita patirbhuah. Disho vijitya patirudda chakraha swatejasotpatita patita lokashalyaha sura surendre upagiyamanha mahanubhavo bhavita patirbhuah. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. No one will be able to disobey the orders of Prithu Maharaj. After conquering the world, he will completely eradicate the threefold miseries of the citizens. Then he will be recognized all over the world. At that time, both the Suras and the Asuras will undoubtedly glorify his magnanimous activities. Purport Srila Prabhupada ki jai. At the time of Maharaj Prithu, the world was ruled by one emperor, although there were many subordinate states. Just as there are many United States in various parts of the world, in olden days the entire world was ruled through many states, but there was a supreme emperor who ruled over all subsidiary states. As soon as there were some discrepancies in the maintenance of the Varnasrama system, the emperor would immediately take charge of the small states. The word Utpatita Loka Shalyaha indicates that Maharaja Prithu completely uprooted all the miseries of his citizens. The word Shalya means piercing thorns. There were many kinds of miserable thorns that pierced the citizens of a state, but all competent rulers, even at the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, uprooted all the miserable conditions of their citizens. It is stated that during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, there did not even exist severe cold or scorching heat. Nor did the citizens suffer from any kind of mental anxiety. This is the standard of good government. Such a peaceful and prosperous government, devoid of anxiety, was established by Prithu Maharaj. Thus, the inhabitants of both saintly and demonic planets were all engaged in glorifying the activities of Maharaja Prithu. Persons or nations anxious to spread their influence all over the world should consider this point. If one is able to eradicate completely the threefold miseries of the citizens, he should aspire to rule the world. One should not aspire to rule for any political or diplomatic consideration. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purpose to the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 16th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Praise of King Prithu by the professional reciters. Om Ajnanati Mirandhas Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Balatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Pupakadamahyam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiv Dapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shiv Shakamvitam Cha Namo Vishnupada Krishna Bhasta Bhutalesh Mata Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswate Gaurvani Parchane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarne He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanustuti Pranamami Haripriya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Moham Karodi Vachalam Pangam Nagi Digrup Yatkapata Mahamande Shri Gurum Dinatarma Paramanda Madam Shri Chaitanya Vishwaram Hare Krishna. So we are coming to the conclusion of this chapter, Praise of King Prithu by the professional reciters. In the 26th sloka, whatever glorification the professional reciters did of Prithu Maharaj would himself hear about it, and all his activities also. So the purport mentions that to artificially advertise oneself and thus enjoy a so-called reputation is a kind of conceit. That means one should not advertise oneself artificially and try to enjoy a false reputation. It is wrong. But Prithu Maharaj was already famous amongst the people because of his chivalrous activities, and there was no necessity for him to advertise himself artificially. This is one point. Another point is that one's factual reputation cannot be covered. That means if one is a good ruler or one has good qualities, his reputation cannot be covered. It will come out automatically. We'll understand some important points of this loka before jumping into going to text 27. So King Maharaj would hear his own glorification, but he would not boast himself as an artificial great personality. So there is a quote in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam which says that any man from any social status becomes a well-known man even in human society within a very short time if he is simply glorified truly or falsely in the daily newspapers. Sometimes political leaders of a particular party are also advertised by newspaper propaganda, and by such a method of glorification, an insignificant man becomes an important man with no time. But such propaganda by false glorification of an unqualified person cannot bring about any good either for the particular man or the society. There may be some temporary reactions to such propaganda, but there are no permanent effects. Therefore, such activities are a waste of time. So it is very easy these days with social media like television and mobile, etc., to artificially glorify anybody. But such a glorification of an insignificant person or an unimportant man has no value. It will go down no point of time. Similarly, sometimes someone might glorify great personalities like politicians or uh, rulers or actors and so forth. But we see on a day-to-day basis that all this reputation or glorification lasts for a very short time. It's simply waste of time for the person who is glorifying, and it has no meaning. So in the further again, the purport is mentioned that for such activities are a waste of time. The actual effect of glorification, object of glorification, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has created everything manifested before us. The tendency to glorify others or hear others must be turned to the real object of glorification, the Supreme Being, and that will bring happiness. So the only object of glorification is the Supreme Lord Krishna, by which the Lord becomes pleased. It also gives us some amount of purification for us also, and that will also give us some happiness. The next point that is mentioned is about King Prithu, glorious chivalrous activities. King Prithu was a great personality by himself. There was no need for him to cover his qualities. Normally, when a king does a good job, then he is appreciated by everyone, including the demons. But nowadays, what happens with the development of democracy, Even if a king does a good job, there are so many people who are meant to, who are there only to criticize him, and that they call it as opposition. And that is thanks to democracy, which is actually democracy. That means many times if the king's uh, qualities are glorified or activities are glorified, there are others to oppose that. So this is what is democracy. Example is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he appeared, he wanted to hide himself, but his devotees like Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, and all did not let him uh, be covered. So they exposed him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a mention of how Bhishma Deva, he was glorifying the Lord, and he says that while Krishna was the charioteer of Arjuna, the sun rays glittered on the dress of the Lord, and the beautiful hue created by the reflection of such rays was never forgotten by Bhishma Deva. As a great fighter, he was relishing the relation of Krishna in the chivalrous humor. Transcendental relation with the Lord in any one of the different rasas is relishable by the respective devotees in the highest ecstasy. The meaning of this particular reference is that Bhishma Deva was in the battlefield and Lord Krishna was on the opposite side. He was driving the chariot of Arjuna. So Bhishma Deva sent a lot of arrows at the Lord's body. And normally it is said that, when someone is hit by arrows, the blood profusses, and then the battlefield is full of dust and so forth, etc. But when Bhishma Deva sent these arrows on the Lord, there was also reflection of the sun rays by the sun. Then, apart from that, this description is given in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The blood was oozing out of the Lord's body, but still, because the Lord is transcendental, the Lord looked much more beautiful than what he was, and Bhishma Deva was relishing this particular rasa, and this rasa is called chivalrous rasa. It is a fighting spirit. So Bhishma Deva was enjoying this, and this is glorifying the Lord as to how the Lord's dress was glittering. Then the next verse in Bhishma Deva is further mentioning the Lord enjoyed the wounds created by his devotee Bhishma Deva. And because Bhishma Deva is a devotee in the chivalrous relation, he fixes up his mind on Krishna in that wounded condition. So the Lord was, in fact, if we get hurt, we will feel the pain. But the Lord Krishna was enjoying the wounds because it was created by his great dear devotee Bhishma Deva. So Bhishma Deva fixed his mind on Krishna even in that wounded condition, which normally we may not do. If we see somebody wounded, we might try to, we become averse to it. Seeing blood itself, we become averse. But Bhishma Deva was relishing the Lord's rasa in chivalrous rasa, in the fighting spirit. Chivalry means brave and brave warrior. There is also a quote regarding Parikshit Maharaj. When Parikshit Maharaj was there, he used to collect taxes, and there was no problem for him to collect the taxes because he was so powerful and chivalrous than even his enemies. In fact, his enemies would come down and bow down at his feet and then surrender all their wealth of their own desire. So Parikshit Maharaj, being a pious king, he conquered all his enemies out of his chivalry, and therefore the kingdom was full of prosperity. Not only that, there was enough milk, there were grains, metals, and all the rivers and mountains were full of potency. So materially, everything was satisfactory. So the point is that Parikshit Maharaj was also a great warrior of chivalry, and during his time, there was no shortage of anything. Everything was in surplus, like the mills, grains, etc. So everyone was happy because everything was in abundance. Then we go to text number 27. Text number 27, there is a mention as to how all the citizens and the ministers, etc., they all obeyed the orders of Prithu Maharaj. And that is one of the qualities of a good king, that everyone obeys his orders. In Bhagavad Gita 7:15, the Lord is explaining to Arjuna as to who disobeys the order. So one of the classes it is mentioned the sloka Namam Duskirtano Muda Prapadyante Naradama Maya Apakhata Jnana Asurim Bhavam Asitaha. The purport is clearly explained. The next class of Duskriti is called Mayahi Apratak Jnana, or those whose knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows like great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc. But the illusory energy misguides him, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. So great personalities like philosophers, scientists, and all these things, they become very intelligent. But when they become intelligent, their knowledge is carried away by the illusory energy of the Lord. So that is why then they start disobeying the order of the Lord. Who is Krishna to order me? I am my own person. I have the freedom to do what I want. Why should I hear Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita? This is how when one becomes intelligent, that intelligence also is given by Krishna. But then they become, they disobey the orders of the Lord also. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a mention about passing away of Bhishma Deva, about the qualities of a king. The king had to see that the energy of humanity was properly utilized. This was one of the important qualities of a king. Whatever resources are available, the king has to ensure that they are all properly utilized. And human energy is meant not for fulfilling propensities like animal, but for self-realization. So a good king ensures that the citizens are developed in the path of self-realization. And the whole government was designed to fulfill this particular purpose. As such, the king had to select properly the cabinet ministers, but not on the strength of voting background. So the kings used to select their ministers based on their qualities. It was not selected by voting. Voting is something that came up much later once the democracy came. And the ministers, the military commanders, and even the ordinary soldiers were all selected by personal qualification, and the king had to supervise them properly before they were appointed to their respective posts. That means people were selected on any position based on their qualification, not otherwise. And they were all trained also, and they were supervised also. Not that they were trained and left, because there is a tendency, there's no supervision, people tend to deviate. But a good king supervises them also. And the king was especially vigilant to see that the tapasvis, or persons who sacrificed everything for disseminating spiritual knowledge, were never disregarded. That means Bhishma Deva is explaining as to how good kings, they never, those who are giving the spiritual knowledge, that is the Brahmanas, it was the duty of the Brahmanas to enlighten the citizens with spiritual knowledge. And the duty of a good king is to ensure that such personalities are never disregarded. And the king also knew that the Supreme Lord himself does not tolerate any insult to such unalloyed devotees who are giving his knowledge. So those who are spreading the knowledge, like Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, they are all very dear to Krishna. And if they are not treated properly, the Lord himself does not like. Then there's a mention that such trusted leaders, even of the rogues and thieves, would never disobey the orders of tapasvis. That means the tapasvis are the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas who wish to undertake austerities for pleasing the Lord. And there is a mention that a good king's kingdom in which rogues and thieves, even they would not disobey the orders of such tapasvis. Like that is, they would not disobey the orders of Brahmanas or Kshatriyas. Rather, the king would give special protection to the illiterates or the helpless and widows of the state. So the taxing process was very easy, and it was not meant for squandering, but for straightening the reserve fund. So whatever taxes were collected by the king, they were meant to be utilized for protection of the citizens. and they were utilized properly and providing adequate resources. That was very, very important. So the kings were liable to do this. And if they were not protecting the citizens, and if they were not providing adequate resources like basic grains, water, milk, etc., and if they are not able to protect the citizens, then the king cannot levy taxes. On the other hand, he gets a reaction of 1/6 of the citizens. So you can imagine how it accumulates. And then there is a prediction given by these professional reciters that after conquering the world, he will completely eradicate threefold miseries of all the citizens. That means Prithu Maharaj will conquer the whole world, and then he would eradicate the threefold miseries of life of all the citizens. So we'll understand something about the threefold miseries. So there's a quote in fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam which explains that during King Vena, the demons certainly did not have any faith in the words of the king. In fact, they were all disrespectful to authorities. We see how King Vena, the orders were always disobeyed. But Prithu Maharaj, from whom uh, Prithu Maharaj came from King Vena's body, but he ruled in such a way that the citizens never disobeyed him. And when people disobey, what happens is they manufacture their own religious principles. And there are instances of people disobeying even personalities like Vyasadeva or Narada, or even up to the personality of Godhead. And as soon as one disobeys an authority, he immediately becomes very sinful and loses all his good fortune. So one should be very careful not to disobey his authority. And in the case of King Vena, he was so puffed up that he dared respect even great personalities, and that's how he was brought to ruination. Then there's a prediction given by these reciters that Prithu Maharaj will be recognized all over the world. And at that time, both the Suras and Asuras will undoubtedly glorify his magnanimous activities. That means there's a mention, the purport as there are planets where demoniac people stayed, but whether they are suras, godly personalities like demigods, or demons, they will undoubtedly glorify the activities of Prithu Maharaj. This was the prediction given by the reciters. We'll go for some more important points. Yes. How King Prithu maintained his ruling. It is said at the time of King Prithu, the whole world was ruled by one emperor, that was Prithu Maharaj, and everyone were all having subordinate states. Just Srila Prabhupada mentions about how we see there are so many examples like United Kingdom. It's a kingdom of small states. Similarly, the United States of America is a union of so many states. Similarly, the entire world was ruled through many states. But the most important thing is that there was one ruler who ruled the entire earth. And we see that in the example of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and Prithu Maharaj also was under the same this thing. He ruled the entire earth planet. Though there were small states, but ultimate ruler was only one, that was Prithu Maharaj. This was an advantage. Why? Because when there is one country, there is one language, and one king who is a Raja Rishi, then everything goes well. When the Kali Yuga came, the whole world was known as India. But after Kali Yuga came, it started breaking into pieces. What to talk about the world? Even in India, we see that in the yesteryear years, there were hardly few states, some 10 or 12 states. But today, there are more than 25 states. Why? Because as time passes, people want their own state. Similarly, people wanted their own country. And when there are different countries with different perspectives, for example, it is said grains are grown very well in the United States of America. Grains are also grown very well in India. India exports a lot of grains. At the same time, in a place like Africa, there are a lot of scarcity for grains. So if there is a division, uh, if there is no division, the king automatically arranges for transportation of grains from one place to the other where there's a scarcity. But when there are different countries with different perspectives, they have a different ultimate. They want to make money. So what happens is there are examples that is said that many countries waste grains by dumping them in the water, but they don't want to distribute to the poor, because by giving them in charity or distributing it to the poor, uh, they may lose their prestige, but rather they would prefer to throw it into the sea. This example is also given. And preferably, when people get identified with their body, the next important thing that happens is that I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm European. And then there's a characteristic difference. There are some places where Indians are disregarded, or they are considered very cheap. That is because this is how when people identify with the body, is because of different countries. But when the country is one, then everyone is a citizen of that one country. So Srimad Bhagavatam mentions also, so when there is one country, then everything is in union. Srimad Bhagavatam also mentions about how the Varnasrama system, one of the king's duty is to establish the Varnasrama system that is designed by the Lord. That is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And in the terms of Varnas, the Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, the Varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the Ashramas are Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasi. There has to be a perfect cooperation between these classes, and they all represent the different parts of the body of the Lord, parts of the universal form of the Lord. So the hand cannot say I'm independent, the head cannot say I'm independent. They all are functioning like the parts of the body. So when each one says that they are independent, that means there is no cooperation. So everything is in a chaos. And it is a king's duty to ensure that there's a perfect cooperation between the citizens in the Varnasrama system. And it is also the duty of the king to ensure that this Varnasrama system is established, because it is established by the Lord himself. And that is the route for a country to prosper, not otherwise. If a Brahmana, what we see today, we see Brahmanas who are employed in companies, or they are employed engaged in business, they're running after money. Brahmanas are supposed to be enlightened with knowledge and give this knowledge to others. That is their duty. Otherwise, they are not at all Brahmana, they are Shudras. So when there is no cooperation in the Varnasrama system, there is a sort of an anxiety within the citizens, whether the government is supporting them by proper these things or not. And it is when the Varnasrama system is established, then there is a peaceful and a prosperous government, and there is no anxiety for the citizens. And this particular system was established perfectly by Prithu Maharaj. Another good quality of a king is that the king is able to remove the threefold miseries of the citizens. And these three miseries we all know: Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi Devika. Adhyatmika is the miseries caused by one's mind and body. Adi Bhautika is miseries caused by other living entities. And Adi Devika are miseries that are caused by natural disasters like landslides, heavy thunderstorms, no rain. These are Adi Devika. So Srimad Bhagavatam actually begins with a surrender of a devotee to the absolute personality. The devotee is fully aware that the absolute person or the personality of Godhead is in control of the entire material manifestation. So in the material conception, one thinks that I am the Lord of all that I survey. Therefore, he is troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real situation as a transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all these three miseries. That means when one starts to lord over, thinking that this is mine, I am this, I am that, and all, that is the time one becomes a victim of the threefold miseries: Adi Atmika, Adi Devika, and Adi Bhautika. But one becomes transcendental to this by taking up surrendering to the Lord, then automatically the threefold miseries of life. We'll go through some of the examples. In the first canto itself, it is mentioned as to how uh, Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, they went through a lot of bodily torture. And some modern politicians also do that for the purpose of getting some results out of it. These types of austerities are in the mode of passion and ignorance. But one who is in the mode of goodness can mitigate even the miseries of life. And the example is given of Vasudeva and Devaki. They underwent so many torture, so much of torture by Kamsa in the prison house. But they were transcendental to the three modes of material nature because they were devotees of the Lord. And though they were underwent a lot of saw a lot of penances to obtain Lord as their son, they were not inflicted by the threefold miseries. That is how the Lord then agreed to become their son. There is also a quote in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam where Narada gives instruction to Vyasadeva. He says, Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve a higher purpose. Then the purpose Srila Prabhupada mentions, Ravana and Hiranyakashipu also went through a lot of torture to achieve some sense gratification, which modern politicians also do. But Vasudeva and Devaki did not face these three modes of material nature. Yeah, sorry, I repeated the same thing. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a mention as to how Narada gives instruction to Vasudeva. He says, an expert physician treats his patient with a therapeutic diet. For example, milk preparation sometimes causes disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk, when it is converted into curd and mixed with some other remedial ingredients, cures such disorders. Similarly, the threefold miseries of material existence cannot be mitigated simply by material activities. We must understand this. Such activities has to be spiritualized, just as by fire, iron is made red hot, and thereby the action of fire begins. That means material miseries cannot be dissipated or vanquished by any material activities, but the same material miseries can be converted uh, by spiritualizing the activities. Whatever activities we do, if we are dovetailing them into spiritual perspective, into spiritual activities, automatically we become free from these threefold miseries. And the example is given about an iron rod. If it is kept in fire, it becomes hot. So similarly, one has to dovetail his activities by to Supreme Lord, then he automatically becomes free from these threefold misery. Prithu Maharaj was an expert in this, and being empowered incarnation of the Lord of the Shakti Avasha Avatara, the demigods also would favor such kings by obliging them. When a king is a great devotee of the Lord, the demigods become very, very pleased, and they fulfill all the desires of that king. So they give abundant rain. They ensure that adequate milk is available. They also ensure that there is no scarcity anywhere. They see that because when there is a scarcity, then citizens become anxious. They are not happy. But the demigods would also ensure that all these things are provided to a king who is a great devotee of the Lord. That is important. That is the secret of success of ruling. And also, we will see Prithu Maharaj this thing. Uh, he never let anyone hoard the grains because of which he appeared to perform this pastime. Generally, people tend to become greedy by hoarding things, whereas uh, Isoparishad, there is a sloka which says Ishavasham idam sarvam. That means Lord Krishna is the supreme proprietor of all that is there we see in the creation. And not only that, he is the enjoyer, but as part and parcel of the Lord, we can take what we want to keep the body and soul together. We cannot uh, exploit by hoarding or by extracting more than what we require. So this, a perfect king like Prithu Maharaj can do this. Then in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a mention of what is the remedy for this threefold miseries. It mentioned that Lord does not want his sons, living beings, to suffer from the threefold miseries. He desires that all of them come back to him and live with him and go back to Godhead. Means that one must purify himself from material infections. When work is therefore performed to satisfy the Lord, the performer becomes gradually purified from the material infection or affection. This purification means attainment of spiritual knowledge. So, when one undertakes spiritual perfection through a proper attainment of knowledge, one automatically becomes free from the threefold miseries. And the Lord, being the Father of all the living beings, He does not want His children to suffer. So why should He give these threefold miseries of life? It is because people are averse to the Lord. That is why He also creates a situation whereby He wants them to come back. The Father tries to correct His children by giving them some punishment. Similarly, the Lord also tries to correct us whereby we go back to Him. So material life is also provided by material desires only, whereas devotional service is something that can kill the desire, unwanted desires from a living entity. There is next point that is mentioned. The first canto itself, when Lord Krishna departed from this material world, as I mentioned as to how material advancement of civilization means advancement of reactions of the threefold miseries due to celestial influence, earthly reactions, or body or mentally pains. The threefold misery means these are disorders in the earthly systems and reactions for our own karma, not otherwise. Then, by the celestial influence of the stars, there are many calamities like excess heat, cold, rains, and so forth. All these are due to our man-made material science. And material science cannot resolve these threefold miseries. They are all punishments from the superior energy of the Lord known as Maya. So, by being constantly in touch with devotional service, it can give us relief from these threefold miseries. It is said the Asuras also, who would not believe in the existence of God, they make their own plans to counteract these threefold miseries and they meet with failures. For example, it is said that Ravana tried to build a staircase, go to heaven to make a shortcut, but he failed in that. Ultimately, Ravana was killed. So all these scientific activities, material activities cannot give solution to the material miseries of life. Then another example, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we might have heard about Swayambhuva Manu. He is one of the progenitors from whom the progeny came. And he surpassed how he surpassed the threefold miseries. Swayambhu Manu was a great personality and he was also a great devotee of the Lord. So he was able by his own this thing to arrange everything within his kingdom in such a way that the demigods would be pleased to serve him. Demigods are all great personalities, but they would be pleased to serve Swayambhu Manu because he was also a great devotee of the Lord. And therefore, during his reign, there was no scarcity of anything. And Srila Prabhupada mentions if one is able to eradicate completely the threefold miseries of citizens, then he should aspire to rule the world. One should not aspire to rule for any political or diplomatic consideration. So this is one of the important criteria for a king. If at all he wants to take up as a ruler, he should first try to take means or adopt means by which the threefold miseries of the citizens are removed. If this is not there, one should not try to have any personal aspirations for political or diplomatic gains. One should not rule such a kingdom. Otherwise, he has to suffer. Not only in this birth, in the many births have to come, he will have to suffer. There is also a mention of how the Lord makes arrangement for asuras to take birth in some places so that they are given a chance to transform, to become themselves, to become God conscious at some point of time. So the Lord places both suras and asuras in every planet so that with the association of suras, the asuras also can become suras. So this is the mercy of the Lord. There's a description of asuras in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a description of, uh, there's also a mention as to how during Maharaj Yudhishthira's time, uh, the grains were adequate, the demigods would favor Yudhishthira Maharaj, and they ensured that everything is available in plenty. And thereafter, after the Pandavas retired and went back, uh, things started collapsing, because that was how the beginning of Kali Yuga started. So in this Asuras, there is a mention in Bhagavad Gita, it says the Supreme Lord has no hatred for anyone. The Lord is equal to both Suras and Asuras. The placing of the Asuras, the demons, in the lower status of life is simply another feature of his own mercy. So the Lord is giving mercy to those who are taking birth in Asura family also, because when the Asuras are killed by the Lord, this killing is also good for them. Whether the Lord, whatever activity the Lord does, it is beneficial. For example, Putana was killed by Krishna when he was a small baby. But Putana was given the position of a nurse in the spiritual world, and the Lord took her back to the spiritual world. So this is how, when somebody is killed by the Lord, he also becomes liberated. And there are also instances like of many asuras like Ravana, Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, who are all killed by various incarnations of the Lord. So the Lord also gives an opportunity for them to become fortunate enough if they are killed by the Lord. Of course, they don't get the position what a devotee would get, but still they are liberated from the material miseries. The definition on the asuras, it says that there are two classes of human beings, namely the envious and the obedient. The Supreme Lord is one, and He is the Father of all living beings, both the envious as well as they are also His sons. But they are known as Asuras. Those who are disobedient to the Lord, they are called Asuras. But those who are obedient to the Supreme Father are called Devatas or demigods, because they are not contaminated by the material conception of life. And whenever there is an increase of asuric mentality in the world, then the Lord corrects it by establishing dharma. He appears himself or sends his devotees. I think with this I conclude the class for the day. These were some of the qualities of a good king, that he is able to rule the kingdom in such a way that the citizens are happy, which is the most important criteria for a king to rule. Hare Krishna. With this I conclude the class for the day. Any questions, any comments, anybody can ask me. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Govardhan Prabhu, you normally have a lot of questions. Any question today?
Hare Krishna Guru, Kandu Pranam.
Dhanavad Prabhu. If no questions, comments, any of you?
Yeah, thanks for the wonderful class, Prabhuji, first of all. And probably that in the purport it said that the ruler, one should rule who can get out of the threefold miseries
Yes.
of the people. So
Yes.
threefold miseries, how can we probably it's Adi Devi, Adi Modik, Adi Bhodik, na? Adi Devi, these are threefold miseries, right?
Okay.
How?
Adhyatmic is given by whom? Our body and mind.
Mind, body and mind, correct.
So if you have everything in plenty, why your mind will be disturbed? If you are living a peaceful life, will you be disturbed by your body and mind?
Correct. Yes, yes.
Okay. Then Adi Bhautika is created by other living entities. Now, when the king is good, even snakes, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there, he traveled to Jharkhand jungle, where the lions and deers and all, they embraced each other. So if there is a good king, there is no enmity. Enmity comes of envy and greed. So if a good king is there, there is no enmity because there is no envy or there is no lust or there is no greed. Number two. Number three, Adi Daivika, the demigods are definitely in charge of so many functions of material nature. For example, Indra is the king of heaven. Now, a king like Prithu Maharaj, who is an empowered incarnation of the Lord, even if he is not an empowered incarnation, a pure devotee is much more powerful than a demigod. Because pure devotees, everything is under his control. He's representing the Lord. So the Lord will protect such a pure devotee under any circumstances. So the Lord ensures that his duty is to maintain the Varnashrama system. His duty is to establish self-realization process. His duty is to ensure that citizens are happy, everything is provided. Such things are possible when there is a king who is representing the Lord or he is an incarnation of the Lord himself. Prithu Maharaj was the incarnation of the Lord himself. Forget about Maharaj Prithu. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a mention as to how during Yudhishthir Maharaj's reign, there was no scarcity of anything. Milk was in abundant, grains were in abundant. But after Kali Yuga came in, after Parikshit Maharaj left his body, things started deteriorating from there itself. Parikshit was cursed by a Brahmana boy. From that time, the Brahmanas lost their Brahminical tejas. Brahmanas fell, they lost their power. Kshatriyas fell, Vaishyas fell, and Shudras fell. And so now we see that everything is in chaos. And there is everything because another reason is that I mentioned about one ruler, one nation, one ruler, one language. This was what India was before. Now in India, you see so many languages are there. People are fighting based on language, isn't it? We want reservation for this community. Our language is the first, is the most important. We are all fighting for this because there are so many states. Each one identified themselves as citizens of that state or that part of the language. A good king can control all these things. And that is why it is said a good king, nobody will disobey. In Kali Yuga, it is not. It is very difficult. But still, I've seen some states in the Gulf and all where people are happy and they're all religious, to be very frank with you. You may not find the same people here in India, but I've seen at any cost, wherever they are, 12 o'clock means 12 o'clock, they'll leave their vehicle somewhere in the side and go and do namaz. And they are living a peaceful life. They may be performing sinful activities at the same time, but Lord is giving them a lot of facilities. That means they have got a lot of pious activities. Why people in Africa are poor? Because they are all impious. Their past was impious. Those who perform a lot of impious activities are sent to such places where there are a lot of Gundaism and all so forth.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Yeah, it's clear, Prabhuji. Very well said, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you all very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.